Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm your host, Dylan Fix. So, in recent Star Wars news, Lucas feels betrayed by Disney? So, recently, not too long ago, Bob Iger released a book about himself, which I personally am never going to read because it's a book about Bob Iger, which should be self-explanatory enough. However, apparently within one of the pages, it is explained that Lucas made it no secret that he was disappointed with the direction Star Wars was taken. And it's even gone on further to be claimed that Lucas actually feels betrayed by Disney's actions. And ever since, people have been shouting across the internet, "How could you, Disney, do this to the father of Star Wars?" Well, I'll definitely get back to that question at the end of this video, but first, I'm just going to call this what I think it is, and frankly, I just believe this is hyperbolic fake news. And no, I'm not calling it fake as if I believe that Bob Iger is lying or that Lucas is lying. I'm calling it fake in the sense that this whole thing is being blown way more out of proportion than what the situation actually is. And I have a fair enough amount of evidence I feel back up my claims, but while I have one point that I feel completely debunks this narrative that Lucas feels betrayed by Disney or in any way dislikes, hates Bob Iger or Disney for choosing not to go with his ideas, I'm not just going to go with that. I'm also going to provide other bits of evidence that isn't just going to rely on speculation, but it's actually going to use George Lucas himself's own words and actions that overall I feel don't add up to what this narrative is being presented as. So allow me to explain the situation to you as it's been explained to me. After selling Star Wars to Disney, Lucas presented them with the outlines he wanted to see established in the next 3 upcoming Star Wars films of the Star Wars sequel trilogy. And Disney rejected those ideas. Now, never mind the fact that Disney has every single right to pick and choose what ideas they use for a franchise that they spent literal billions of dollars to purchase. This is the exact same Lucas that at one point said the following.
What if someone else beside you came to you and said, "I want to make episode 7"? Could you see that happening?
No.
No, absolutely, positively, you're really closing the door without any wiggle room whatsoever.
Right. There is no episode 7. There is no episode 7. There is no episode 7.
Even for someone else to come up with.
Well, there's possibility there may be another offshoot movie somewhere about an offshoot character in that world.
But not episode
But not about
7.
Luke Skywalker, not about that group of people and that struggle to bring democracy back to the galaxy.
Lucas would like to focus the remainder of his career on more personal ventures, aka art films. Also, it doesn't sound like any of those more personal flicks would be attached to the Star Wars franchise. He went on to say, quote, "Why would I make any more Star Wars movies when everyone yells at you all the time and says what a terrible person you are? I think there are a lot more important things in the world."
So on one hand, you have a Lucas that, while in power, while in control of Star Wars, stated firmly that there wasn't going to even be an episode 7, let alone an 8 or 9. But also say, why would he make more Star Wars films when everyone yells at him and tells him what an awful person he is? And on the other hand, you have a George Lucas that had a list of expectations he wanted to see for the next Star Wars trilogy, and if they weren't used, it would be seen as a complete betrayal for everything he had envisioned for the future of Star Wars. Give me a break. By his own words, there was never even going to be a continuation of the Skywalker saga. And maybe those were George's exact words, but let's be honest here for a second. The guy got paid billions of dollars for Star Wars. How betrayed can you possibly feel? Let me make something clear to you right now. If Disney somehow managed to cheat Lucas out of the money that they paid him for Star Wars, as well as Star Wars, where there was some underlining fine print in the contract that Lucas just didn't see, and before he even left the building, Disney was like, "Oh, well, looks like you scratched your ass before you left the building, and that violates the terms of the contract. That means we get Star Wars and the money back, and you get nothing." I would spend the rest of my life burning Disney to the ground. I would devote every video on my channel to talking smack about him 24/7, every single hour of the day that I had free to just rant about my disdain for Disney. I would do it relentlessly, but that's not what happened. And for some reason, it's almost like it's being made out like that is what happened, and I'm not sure why. But if I'm going to wrap up this idea about George Lucas feeling betrayed by Disney, I need only look as far as relative recent actual news the grand opening of the latest Star Wars attraction at Disneyland, the Galaxy's Edge, where Lucas showed up as the guest of honor, walked out on stage, and shook hands with Bob Iger. So fairly clearly it seems like Lucas has really no beef with Disney or Bob Iger at this point in time. Let me make something else pretty clear to you. If I was in Lucas's position and I felt as betrayed as the way it's being made out to be across the internet right now, I would never have attended that grand opening ceremony. In fact, I would have gone out of my way to fuck over Bob Iger and Disney, where I would just call him up and be like, oh yeah, I'll totally show up. Yeah, yeah, you know what? Get the word out, tell everyone I'm going to be there, and we're just going to make this a huge shindig, and I'm just going to make sure that we promote this product the right way, and we're going to make sure you get all that money, and then just not show up. And then Bob Iger would have to waddle out there on the stage and just be like, well, you know, I guess Lucas was supposed to show up like I promised, but he's not here, and I'm not sure why. And then I would comment online like, yeah, that's what happens when you fuck someone out of their franchise, dick. But again, that's just not what happened. So it just leaves me to believe that whatever conflict Disney and Lucas had, it's been resolved. Because otherwise it just doesn't make sense for someone who feels betrayed to show up at a grand opening ceremony for a Star Wars attraction and help promote that product. If that is somehow the case, then George Lucas is the most inconsistent, masochistic person I have never met in my entire life, and I'm not sure why he would do these horrible things to himself. If I'm going to seal this point home with Lucas, if George Lucas truly cared what would happen to the future of Star Wars, if he truly wanted his ideas to be applied, sure thing, for any future Star Wars films, there was a very crystal clear path he could have taken. Not selling the franchise, but he did, so here we are. Now, to come back to a question that was asked at the start of this video where people were asking, how could you, Disney, do this to the father of Star Wars? Well, frankly, I feel like that's just too easy of a question to ask because the answer's also fairly easy. And I think that for a more productive conversation, you have to ask the harder, more uncomfortable questions like, what would cause Disney not to want to use George Lucas's ideas? I mean, after all, he is the father of Star Wars. So shouldn't his ideas come first and foremost when discussing any ideas for future Star Wars films? Well, might I remind everyone that for over a decade, countless videos were made slandering, mocking, and ridiculing every idea he made during the prequels trilogy? And sure, there's plenty of people out there right now that have always supported George Lucas and they supported his prequels, they liked his prequels. But just go back to before Episode 7 came out and just compare the ratio of how many videos were made. It's overwhelmingly a 100-to-1 fight in favor of the anti-prequels. So given all that, it just doesn't make it impossible in my mind that Disney saw all these videos over the years, saw the anti-Lucas outrage that was going on, and decided, well, given all the videos that are out and how few people are openly supporting them at this current time, we really have no reason to believe that Lucas is either supported or his ideas are even liked. So why should we go with his ideas again? So to come back to the question that I think has a very easy answer, how could you, Disney? Very simple. Cause and effect. You spent years ridiculing and mocking the ideas of the man who created Star Wars, and to the point that he fled from the franchise right into the arms of Disney and sold it off to him, just to get away. And yes, he was chased away, given that I see no reason why he couldn't have kept Lucasfilms and still go on to work on different projects. Like if I was Lucas and I wanted to ensure that my vision remained the way I wanted it to be at all times, like I would have made like some kind of committee with people that I trust, like Kathleen Kennedy or anyone else that I thought had their heads and hearts in the right places, and I would have just sat down with them and been like, all right, look, I don't want to work on any more Star Wars films. If you guys want to do that, great. You can go out, cast whoever you want. You can use any other director other than Michael Bay. As long as you follow this outline of what these films need to be, have at it. Go. But he didn't do that. And a rule of thumb that I've always gone by is that when there are facts that contradict the narrative that is being told, the full story isn't being told. Only a version of the story that certain people only want you to know about is being told. And frankly, at the end of the day, we just don't know what the situation is between Bob Iger, Disney, and Lucas. And the only people who know that are those priorly named. And if they're not willing to step out and set the record straight, while that does leave us with the responsibility of figuring out what the situation actually is, shouldn't that tell us that to them it's just not as big of a deal? So if it's not really that big of a deal to them, why must that be a big deal to us? And I have a small theory for that. It's because people want to use figureheads as authorities on matters of debate. If you can get someone that you can point to as an authority figure, it makes the job easier to debate your point when you can just say, well, this guy is the founder of this topic, so shouldn't he of anyone know? Shouldn't he of anyone's opinion be taken the most seriously? To which I'd have to say, no, not really, because while Lucas is entirely entitled to his opinion, to me, his authority on things was sort of surrendered when he sold Star Wars. He kind of gave up that right to have an authority on anything. That's sort of the reason, that's sort of what happens when you sell the rights to something off to someone else. You don't get that much of a say anymore. Anyway, guys, that's just my 2 cents on this matter. I try to be as even-handed as I can. It's just when you're dealing with so much conflicting information, the best you can do is just look at all the evidence that's provided and account for what contradicts the other and just make your own informed choice and not just rely on what other people say on the internet. I'm not asking you to just go off of what I say. Do your own research, look up what both sides are saying, and make your own decision. Anyway, guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day. If you like this video, please give me a like. If you want to see more, give me a subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next video. See ya.